After a bad start in Detroit, Jared Jones needed a bounce back against one of MLB's best teams. I think he did a pretty good job.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every single day. My name is Ethan Smith, your host of the Locked On Pirates podcast, bringing you your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates from a fan's perspective, because I'm also a fan of the team. I've been a fan of the team my entire life. And I'm very excited right now because I'm probably watching the two best pitchers that I've seen in a Pirates uniform in my entire life right now, and Jared Jones and Paul Skenes. We'll get to Paul Skenes a little bit later on today's show. But before we start talking about Jared Jones and all of the great things that Jared Jones did on Tuesday evening against the Los Angeles Dodgers, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel.com/lockedon can help you get some bonus money and some bonus bets with just $5. So make sure you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon for all your betting needs this MLB season. And if you bet on the Pirates to win last night, you would have won some money. The Pirates getting a 1-0 victory over the Los Angeles Dodgers on Tuesday night. Only 4 hits on the evening for the Pittsburgh Pirates, 5 for the LA Dodgers, but a large part of that was because of some very solid pitching. Remember on the show yesterday, I said that pitching was going to be a major part of this series with Tyler Glasnow and Paul Skenes and Jared Jones and James Paxton and Walker Buehler and Bailey Falter. The pitching was going to make the difference in this series. And yesterday, the Pittsburgh Pirates won the series or won the game because of pitching, starting, of course, with Jared Jones, who, as I mentioned, had a very off start against the Detroit Tigers in his last outing. A lot of things can be attributed to that. The Tigers maybe just figured him out early and often in that game, which they did. And also he had to pitch a day later due to the delay or the postponement of that game. And pitchers are creatures of habit. We know that. So that had to play a part in it as well. Jones comes back against one of baseball's best offenses and one of baseball's best teams, folks. 6 innings pitched to scoreless baseball, 6 strikeouts, 3 walks, 3 hits on the evening, and had 100 pitches even, including 2 strikeouts against Shohei Ohtani. So that'll obviously make your outing feel a little bit better. But what I found more impressive, too, before we get back to Jones, is that trio that we talked about, that 7-8-9 trio that we were loving going into this season with Colin Holderman, Aroldis Chapman, and David Bednar, finally looked like that elite trio that we were all expecting. Holderman comes in, only allows a hit and no earned runs. Aroldis Chapman allows a hit, strikes out 2, 1 walk, allows no runs. David Bednar comes in, shuts the door for his 12th save. That's what you were hoping for coming into the season, is that guys like Mitch Keller and Bailey Falter and Martin Perez and Marco Gonzalez at the beginning of the season. Remember, this was before we really thought that Jared Jones was going to be up here and before Paul Skenes debuted. That's all you were hoping for out of these guys, is that they were going to manage to give you 6 good innings so you could hand it off to Colin Holderman, Aroldis Chapman, and David Bednar. And that's exactly what Jared Jones did yesterday. Now, what I found most impressive for Jared Jones, once again, it was the in-game adjustments that he continues to make through every single start that really just continue to work for him. He seems to have a good knack of learning which pitch is going to work best for him on any given night. He loves using that fastball. We know that. That's a fastball that he enjoys to use. It's a fastball that is very elite. He threw it past 6 guys pretty much yesterday. And what I love about it, too, is that slider is such a good complementary pitch to it. Now, as you heard Gary mention on Monday about Jones, especially with Davis returning, Davis comes back. We'll talk a little bit about Davis again on today's show later. We talked about him yesterday, so go check that one out. Davis catches him a little bit differently than you see from a Yasmani Grandal or even a Jason DeLay. because Davis uses that fastball as his primary pitch, and then you see the slider and the changeup kind of complement it, and that's what I think worked so well for him last night. Meanwhile, Grandal is very slider heavy and then tries to use the fastball as a complementary pitch, and we kind of see how sometimes that doesn't work for Jared Jones. But last night, he did everything that he needed to do correctly, and what I found even more impressive is that the Dodgers, throughout the entire game last night, had 9 batters left on base, and they were 0 for 12 with runners in scoring position, which I found very impressive. And that doesn't only go, of course, to Jared Jones. That also goes to the entire pitching staff of Holderman, Chapman, and Bednar as well. And I do find it interesting, to top this all off, that a lot of people were kind of saying, okay, is the league giving him a little bit of pushback, that being Jared Jones? Is he getting a little bit of pushback? And you have to expect that from a guy like Jared Jones, who's in his debut season. And obviously a lot of teams haven't even seen him yet. The Dodgers, being one of those teams, have not even seen a guy like Jared Jones just yet. And through 12 games, I mean, 76 strikeouts, 3.25 ERA over 69 and a thirds innings pitched, a 1.01 whip. You're going to take that from a guy like Jared Jones. It's just something that you look at and say, you're going to take that. You're going to obviously love that, because he cemented himself in the Rookie of the Year conversation. He continues to be dominant. And even in his last 7 games, his ERA has inflated just a little bit from his last 15, obviously his last 15, but you know that like he's been in 12. But over his last 7, so you remove 5 of his starts, he still has a 3.57 ERA in his last 7 games with 37 strikeouts and 11 walks. Jared Jones is very good. And I think it was an exclamation point last night as well when he was about to enter pitch 100. It was a full count against Jason Hayward, and he struck him out. He finished his outing strong with 100 innings on the nose, 6 strong shutout innings. And you continue to just see him fight against one of the best lineups that he will ever face. One of the best lineups, bar none, that Jared Jones will ever face. I mean, you saw Mookie Betts, Ohtani, Freeman. You know that's the top 3 that the Dodgers love to run with. That, I mean, outside of Freddie Freeman, who had a 2 for 4 night, Ohtani had a hit. It wasn't against, and Mookie Betts was 0 for 3 with a walk. Will Smith, Teoscar Hernandez, Jason Hayward, Gavin Lux, Miguel Rojas, Chris Taylor. This is one of the best lineups that Jared Jones will ever see in his major league career. And he just made them look silly. I mean, you have to love it. And he obviously sat there as well. And we know the backstory. We heard the backstory quite a bit, that Jared Jones used to be a Dodgers fan. He used to be a guy that went to Dodgers games as a kid. He was a guy that loved the Dodgers growing up. And getting to face your former team, especially, it just makes it great. And everything that you saw last night was huge. And I honestly think overall, it was huge for this team. It was a big moment for this team, who's coming off another series loss to the Toronto Blue Jays, in which their pitching was very good. And albeit they only scored 1 run on the evening from a Jack Suwinski home run, who we'll talk about Jack Suwinski here in a minute, you love getting wins like this, where although you only scored 1 run and had 4 hits, you did enough to win the game. That is what they did. You got solid pitching from your starter. Your relievers came into the game and shut the door, and your offense gave you just enough to win the game. That's what you want to see. And you obviously have to be happy that the Pirates didn't blow the game last night, because they're tied for 3rd in baseball and the most blown leads in baseball right now. So these are the kind of wins that, yes, the offense is frustrating, only getting 4 hits. Yes, it's frustrating that, you'd like to see them get an all-around victory against the LA Dodgers, but it's still a victory against the LA Dodgers, a team that you've now beaten 9 out of the last 14 times you played them. And much like we've said about the Chicago Cubs series and a lot of other series where we've seen Jones go out and win, now you know that you have Paul Skenes coming up today. And when you have Paul Skenes ready to go, and you already have a win under your belt in the series and a chance to win the series tonight against one of baseball's best teams and one of the best lineups in baseball in the LA Dodgers, folks, you're going to be happy about that. You have to be. And now the Pirates are 28-32. They're still very much in the mix in the wild card post Memorial Day, which is a big deal. There's still a lot of baseball left to be played, but anytime that you have Jared Jones and Paul Skenes on the bump right now against anybody, you have to think that the Pirates have a good chance to win both of those games. And hopefully some of the newcomers, but old friends, come up and make an impact. And we already saw that last night from Jack Suwinski. We're going to talk about Jack Suwinski, Henry Davis, and Liover Peguero, three guys that came up through the grapevine out of AAA who have been here before. But what kind of role will each of them have, and what kind of impact can they have on the roster? We're going to discuss in a moment. Well, folks, the Pirates have a couple of promotions going on this weekend, including a free t-shirt on 80s night on Saturday. I'll be at the baseball game on Saturday. And a lot of times when I go to PNC Park and watch these baseball games, I always use Game Time, because Game Time, just download the app and you can use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. In terms apply. Game Time's an official authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, and it makes getting tickets faster and easier. Folks, all you have to do is hit a couple buttons. Figure out which section you want to sit at PNC Park, get on the Game Time app, and you can find your section for less than anywhere else. And you're going to get killer last-minute deals. You're going to get all-in prices. You're going to get views from your seat. And their lowest price guarantee. Yes, I said the word guarantee. It makes the guesswork completely go away out of buying MLB tickets. I mean, again, you heard me mention, you have Pride Night and Fireworks Night on Friday against the Minnesota Twins. You have a free shirt Saturday against the Twins this weekend. You have Dollar Dog Night tonight against the LA Dodgers. So if you want to go to the game tonight and you're like, oh, it's so last minute, I don't know how I'm going to go, just get on Game Time, because they're going to have killer last minute deals for you. They even have flash deals and zone deals where you save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event, or you save more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. You even get all-in pricing that you can toggle that'll show the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. And if you're ever worried about anything, Game Time ticket coverage is here for you. Their purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. And download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And welcome back, everybody, to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every single day. Don't forget to check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the 24/7 streaming channel brought to you by Locked On and all of the local hosts of Locked On, like myself, bringing you all of your news in the sports world that you need every single day. The NBA Finals kick off tomorrow. The MLB season is completely underway and nearing the All-Star break, actually, in about a month and change. And the NHL Stanley Cup Finals start soon. So you want to check out all of that. Go find it on Locked On Sports Today, where they're sharing all the news of everything going on in the world of sports. And in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates, as I always like to say, again, 1-0 win yesterday. 4 hits on the evening, beat the LA Dodgers, improved to 28-32. And there was a slew of roster moves that happened before yesterday's game that saw Jack Suwinski, Henry Davis, and Liover Peguero all back on the big league roster. We already knew about Henry Davis, so we kind of weren't shocked about that one at all. But Jack Suwinski and Liover Peguero come up as Michael A. Taylor goes to the paternity list. Ji-Hwan Bae goes to the IL, and among other moves. And I initially was like, okay, that's kind of quick for Jack Suwinski to be back. They did send him down a couple weeks ago due to his struggles that he was having, much like Henry Davis. I even thought Henry Davis coming back up was pretty quick as well, but they're back. And then Peguero obviously shocked me also, because the one question that was coming into my mind about all this is, what roles are these guys going to have? And Henry Davis, I think you kind of already have a pretty good idea of what his role is going to be with the way the catcher position is for the Pittsburgh Pirates right now. Jason DeLay obviously still he's in AAA now, but he was on a rehab assignment for a while. Grant Cook was not getting it done. Yasmani Grandal cannot catch every day because of his age. And then Andy Rodriguez has been out all season. And you look at the other options, there are just not a lot of other options available. So Henry Davis, you really hope that Henry can come up and make those adjustments that we talked about on yesterday's show and fully supplants himself as the starting catcher, because the catching position is in a bit of a weird place. But Henry Davis last night, 1 for 3 with a double, had a strikeout. Thought it was a very tough matchup for him against Tyler Glasnow, especially because Glasnow is just one of those great pitchers. I thought that they might have just waited for Davis today to come up and wait for him. But what we do get the opportunity for is if Davis does start tonight for Skenes, we'll get that 1-1 battery, which I think is going to be absolutely phenomenal. But Peguero obviously did not play last night. I don't know if Peguero is just kind of a placeholder while Ji-Hwan Bae is on the injured list and Michael A. Taylor's on the paternity list. But it is interesting that he's here as well, because Peguero obviously can play the middle infield. You have O'Neal Cruz back, though, so he's not going to play much shortstop. Nick Gonzalez has been hitting the ball pretty well, even though he went 0 for 3 last night. He still has an 829 OPS. And you have Alika Williams as well. I don't remember if Alika Williams was a part of all those moves, but I don't think he was. We'll confirm that just in case, so I don't get made fun of here on the show today. But Peguero is an interesting one as well, because I think Peguero, who was also having a pretty good string of things in AAA, much like we saw with Nick Gonzalez, I think that he's the kind of guy, too, that you look at and say, okay, maybe he can come up and see his bat really flourish. And he was Alika Williams was not a part of any of the moves that were made yesterday. Jose Hernandez was the option that I was thinking of with Ben Heller, and we'll get into that a little bit too in the series or in the Game 2 preview. But Jack Suwinski, of the 3 guys that came up yesterday, was the big difference maker. He was hitting 9th in the order. I don't remember a time that Suwinski ever hit 9th in the order for the Pittsburgh Pirates. It may have been the first time. I don't remember, but it's not very often. He did have 2 strikeouts on the evening, but he did have the home run that made the difference in the 3rd inning. He hit it over the Clemente Wall against Glasnow. It had to feel good for him. Suwinski, we know what Suwinski's problem is. He strikes out too much, and he'll get on base via the free pass. Trust me, he will find a way. He didn't have a walk last night, but he just has these strings of time where he just does not do anything. And I mean anything. Like get on base, get hits, get home runs. He will not do anything. And then he has strings like we've seen in the past where he'll go on a tear and have 4 home runs over the course of 5 or 6 or 7 games and then revert right back to it. Now, I'm not asking Jack Suwinski to hit 4 home runs over the course of 7 games all the time, but I'm asking him not to feel like a statue at the bottom of the lineup for weeks at a time, right? You don't want that. Now, the lineup that we saw yesterday, I think a lot of people were pretty happy about outside of Rowdy Tellez, who is still here. I don't know how much longer the Rowdy Tellez experiment is really going to go. I really don't. But this is the kind of lineup where if Jack Suwinski and Henry Davis can really start figuring some things out, folks, the Pirates are going to be a better baseball team. And then you're going to throw Connor Joe probably in there at first base at some point, which will open the door for a guy like Olivares to get some playing time again. And your lineup starts to look pretty decent. Now, it's still a lineup that needs a lot of fixing. It's still a lineup that needs Jack Suwinski and Henry Davis to be consistent in the bottom part of the order and hand it off to that top part of the order, which has looked really good. Reynolds was 2 for 4 last night, but outside of that, the top 7 hitters did not have a hit on the evening outside of Brian Reynolds, so that was a little worrisome. But I even mentioned that Tyler Glasnow was going to be a tough out for this Pirates team, and he was. And this is still a team, too, especially with Jack Suwinski, that just needs left-handed power. You were expecting that out of Rowdy Tellez. He hasn't given you that at all. You were expecting that out of Jack Suwinski. Hasn't really given it to you at all. And then O'Neal Cruz, he's given it to you in spurts, but he hasn't been on pace really to have that 25 to 30 home run season that a lot of people would like to see out of Cruz. He does have 7 homers and 20 RBIs, but he can't handle the load of being the only left-handed hitter in the lineup that's hitting home runs. You need a guy like Jack to do it. You need a guy like Tellez to do it, and Tellez isn't going to do it. He's just far gone at this point. So that puts even more pressure on a guy like Jack Suwinski to really come back up here and make his point known. And he did so last night with the home run. You hope it's a building block for Jack Suwinski. You really do. And for Henry Davis, I mean, the pressure is on him too with the way the catching position is for the Pittsburgh Pirates right now. It's a position that desperately needs consistency, and it hasn't seen it this year. And if it doesn't find consistency, you're only going to raise more questions about Henry Davis. And that's not a conversation we want to have. You want your former number 1 overall selection to take over that position like we all expected him to. And we'll see what he can do. He looked good last night, I thought. He had the 1 strikeout, but having the double, I thought he was fine. And most of your offense literally half of your offense last night came from Davis and Suwinski. That's the things that you want to see. You want to see the top of the lineup do well, and also the bottom of the lineup do well. And if that can start happening, you're going to start seeing this offense become more consistent. And if this offense becomes more consistent with this starting pitching staff, that's when you're really going to start having a good conversation about this Pirates team. And a lot of that is thanks to Paul Skenes, who will be going into his first night game start of his career against the LA Dodgers this evening. We're going to preview his start against the Dodgers, as well as everything else you need to know for Game 2, where the Pirates will face James Paxton. We'll get to that in a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Pirates is brought to you by FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on everything Pittsburgh Pirates with the best in the industry, because it's winner take all in the NBA and the NHL. Mavericks, Celtics, Panthers, Oilers. It is time to put up or shut up in the NBA and the NHL playoffs, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 bet that wins. All you got to do is bet $5 on the Pirates, the Oilers, the Panthers, the Mavericks, the Celtics. You could even bet on the Red Sox to beat the Braves, the Cardinals, or the Astros to win. You could bet on the Reds or the Rockies. If you hit for one of those on $5, you get $150. That's a good freaking deal. And you can bet on spreads. You can bet on money lines. You can bet on player props and more. If you think Paul Skenes can get his over on strikeouts tonight, you can do that at FanDuel. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count, because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook and an official sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network. And folks, welcome to the final segment of today's episode of Locked On Pirates here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It is Wednesday, June 5th, and it's another Skenes Day here in Pirate Land, as the LA Dodgers will look to even the series against the Pittsburgh Pirates tonight against Paul Skenes, who will be pitching or slated to pitch in his first night game of his career at 6:40 Eastern time tonight against the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers will be showing James Paxton to the hill for the Pittsburgh Pirates. If you guys heard me mention Paxton on the show yesterday, 10 starts on the year, a perfect 5-0 record, 3.29 ERA, 52 innings pitched, a 31 strikeouts, and 1.38 whip. Very interesting from Paxton. Now, what I do find interesting for Paxton, though, is the last couple of games, he hasn't went that far. 2 starts ago against Cincinnati, 4.2 innings pitched, 5 hits, 5 earned, 4 walks, and only 4 strikeouts. Game following, pitched with the Mets, 3 innings pitched, 2 hits, no earned runs, 3 strikeouts. So it's very interesting that when you look at Paxton, you saw him go 5-6, 5-5, 6-6, 6. Recently, though, in these last 2 starts, he hasn't even made it to the 5th inning. or made it out of the 5th inning. Apologies. So this is a Pirates team that hits lefties well. Let's go back a couple days to that Saturday win against the Toronto Blue Jays, and they faced a lefty in UC Kikuchi, who came in with a very solid ERA, and the Pirates torched them. I mean, they had 11 hits on the evening against the Blue Jays overall, 9 of those coming against Kikuchi, and they chased him in the 5th inning. He got to the 6th inning, but 5 1/3 innings pitched from Kikuchi, another lefty that was pitching well. The lefty before that was Skubal. We talked about that already, about how good Skubal was. Now, Paul Skenes, it's interesting here because this is the toughest lineup, much like Jones. This is the toughest lineup that Paul Skenes has seen and likely will ever see in his MLB career to this point. Skenes has a 2.45 ERA. He's 2-0. We've seen everything that we can see from Skenes that we've seen so far. 30 strikeouts over 22 innings, 0.91 whip. You look at the game log, he's went exactly 6 innings in his last 3 starts. He went 4 innings in his opener. He's only given up 3 earned runs in these past 3 starts, though. He gave up 3 earned runs in his first one. He's given up 3 combined in his last 3. Now, you look at the teams he faced there, Chicago Cubs again, San Francisco, and Detroit. Do not have lineups like LA. LA, though, struggled against Jones. Skenes, to me, is a better pitcher. I think most people would agree with that, but that's no slight to Jared Jones at all. But for Paul Skenes, it's going to be about using those complementary pitches again. He loves using the fastball. We know that. He's going to continue to use the fastball, much like Jones. The slider is an elite pitch for him as well. The splinker in his last start was the big pitch that Skenes liked using. He struck out 4 of the 9 Tigers that he struck out on the afternoon against the Tigers with the splinker. That is going to be the difference, I think, in this game tonight for Skenes, is how does that splinker and how does the slider work in tandem with the fastball? Because you know the Dodgers, after seeing Jones, are going to be gearing up for the fastball against Skenes all night. Can he keep them off balance with the splinker? Can he keep them off balance with the slider? Are these things that we'll see from Skenes? More than likely. As for the Pirates, to give Skenes run support, which they've done in every single game that Skenes has played, they've had good success against left-handed pitching this year. Paxton has struggled as of late. So you hope that the Pirates offense gets out to an early lead, lets Paul Skenes kind of ease himself into the start against the Dodgers. Obviously, much like Jones, a California kid, so grew up watching the Dodgers and the Angels. And you hope that Skenes just looks like Paul Skenes. And if Paul Skenes looks like Paul Skenes and the offense gives him run support that they've given him in his past 3 starts, and really his first start, then you can expect the Pirates to walk away with this one with a pretty good chance to win. And you also hope that the bullpen can do what it did last night and shut the door. Albeit it got close at times, they shut the door. So it'll be another phenomenal night at PNC Park for Skenes Day, his 5th start of his career against the LA Dodgers. Again, probably the toughest lineup he'll see all season. So we'll see how Paul Skenes and the Pittsburgh Pirates fare as they look for a series victory over the LA Dodgers and their 10th win in their last 15 against the Dodgers over from LA. See how it goes. Folks, thank you so much for tuning into the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. Follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. You can find this show on YouTube and all of your audio platforms because it is free and available to you every Monday through Friday. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We're almost at 1,900 subscribers. Would love to get to that mark pretty soon. Folks, thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday, June 5th. See you tomorrow. Till then, see you on the flip side.